you can get so entwined in the pedagogy of your teaching that sometimes you forget, the basics are supporting the students' learning.
So, what do you think needs to happen to promote the wellbeing of teachers?
Well, I think we need to provide more opportunities for teachers to connect, more time to collaborate and put more time into planning, and I think it's really tricky when we're moving around day to day. It's often hard to build connections with one another. That's been my experience. It is those relationships with staff and those conversations in the yard that I believe are most important to us. It is such a hard job that it's when we speak to one another we can exchange ideas, and I think you can relate to one another a little bit better too. Certainly I think one of the most important qualities that I see in my colleagues is empathy, and when you're able to have those chats and realise that, okay, that person's going through that as well, that's really important. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting you say that, because I see workplaces, they can be high stress, and teaching in itself is quite a stressful occupation. But if there's high morale, that in many ways can mitigate the stress. It can make the stress more manageable, and those sort of collegial environments are so important for teachers. I know that some of the teachers that I've talked to have said that wellbeing in schools is all about the yoga and the fruit bowls in the staff room, and it's much more an individual thing, that they're responsible for it and they should be looking after their own wellbeing. But you're talking about something much broader there, aren't you?
Yeah, I think when it very much places the blame on the individual, if we start saying, okay, you need to do yoga, you need to be eating well, all these things, it's more complex than that. Because in teaching there's so many things that we can't control. Our stress levels are very much dependent on the processes and policies that a school will have in place, whether it be good or bad. As you mentioned, it's an inherently difficult job, but if you have those structures in place and those support networks within your school, it is possible to thrive and find meaning in the work. But the flip side of that too is that if those aren't in place, then it's very hard. I think it very much, as I mentioned before, it puts the blame on the individual, but it's very hard
bigger
to control.
It's bigger than that, What do you think about boundaries and boundary setting for teachers? How do you think that works, or it doesn't work?
I think teaching is a job where there's always something you can be doing. So for you to actually take 5 minutes out of your day to go and unwind, that's at the expense of you maybe not getting a task done. What I've found is that in the long run, you have to set up those boundaries. You have to take time in your week that's set aside for you, because if you're tired, if you haven't had lunch, if you haven't had a chance to play sport or do things that you enjoy, then you're no good to anybody really. So you have to put those boundaries in place for yourself, and ultimately it's better for other people too, the students, because if you're in a better mood, then that carries over to the students and your staff. So.
And just like what you were saying before, it's not just an individual setting up boundaries, but I think schools, early childhood centres and so on need to look at what boundaries they can set as an organisation, like emails. Like in this workplace, we don't respond to emails on weekends, and that's something that the culture of the school promotes. So I think it's, again, not just individual, it's also systems and culture. I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when a school's really clear on its philosophy and it does encourage its staff to put things in place, such as no emails on the weekend, it demonstrates too that school cares about your well-being and your mental health as well. And I think when the school is seen to be doing that. The kids pick up on that too. It is possible for you to model good wellbeing habits for the students as well.
Yeah.
So you say, okay, no, I'm not responding to you now. That will need to wait until next Monday, or they pick up on that as well.
Yeah, that's good modelling for kids, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. What do you think about talking about mental health in schools? And when you're struggling, what are your thoughts about that?
It's funny because when we talk to each other, what certainly my experience is that when you do talk to other teachers, you'll find that they're going through a lot of the same things. So I think that's really refreshing. It has been difficult, over the COVID era. It's been, absolutely one of the hardest things ever. But when you talk to other staff, they're going through the same thing, and there's often a common difficulty and common problems.
So it's important to share, isn't it?
I think so,
to people
absolutely.
that are safe, that you can trust.
Yeah. I don't think you can. There needs to be an element of trust there for sure. I don't think you can just go willy-nilly sharing difficulties. It needs to be someone that you know and can trust. And I think too, you build trust with your colleagues when you're vulnerable, and you say, all right, this is what's hard at the moment. But it needs to be a shared vulnerability too. I think you build trust with your colleagues when you maybe show that side as well.
And ask for help at the same time, isn't it? It's like you're sharing, what's happening for you, but also asking for help in some ways. Or
Absolutely. I think like over the last year and a half, you get so caught up in the teaching and stuff. But some of the most important things that I've done over the last year and a half is can I help you with this, or what can we do about that? So with other staff or students. I think just you can get so entwined in the pedagogy of your teaching that sometimes you forget, the basics are supporting the students' learning. Okay, you're stuck at this step, all right, or how can I help you? Things like that have just been really, really important, I would say.
One of a school that I worked with a few years ago, I remember the principal actually said to all their staff on a student-free day that they had been going through some mental health issues, and you could have heard a pin drop in that staff room. And it was such a powerful statement. The principal was really clear on their own boundaries, and but was trying to model to staff, it's normal to talk about this stuff. We need to look after each other. I thought it was a really powerful thing. It's a risky thing though too, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think knowing when to share and what to share is important.
Would you say something to kids?
It's a bit of a tough one. Kids really value and appreciate authenticity. And I think as teachers, as leaders, I think they need to be able to see that there are some difficult things about being in a profession, any profession for that matter. I think it's important to teach certainly an emotional literacy as well, and we need to probably spend more time thinking about how we can teach our young kids, students, how to express what they're thinking and feeling, because sometimes they forget that, and if we build up a word bank for emotions and feelings, and I feel this way because when students can articulate it, I think that helps with the challenges as well. So,
what about that? I worked with a teacher who was going through depression, and she told all her year 8 kids that this is why I'm being a bit grumpy or distant lately, because of depression. Now, some of those kids told their parents, who promptly rang the school and said, "Is this teacher fit to teach?" Which, hurts, because we're trying to normalise this stuff, but there's a risk, isn't there? The community
absolutely
has their own sort of views about mental health.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a tricky one. Where do you draw the line? Yeah, year 8, yeah, kids can
Yeah.
take stuff and run with it too a little bit. Yeah, I think when somebody is in a position such as that, maybe perhaps they might reach a point where they're no longer fit to teach, but then the school network needs to say, okay, how can we support you at the moment?
Yeah.
And a solution needs to be found in providing that staff member with perhaps some time off, pay without leave, or how can we support you through this, and actually come up with some tangible ideas to support that person.
Because just because somebody has depression doesn't necessarily mean that they're not a good teacher.
That's right.
You know,
yes.
like we all go through different, you know, when you look at the statistics, 50% of Australians will have a mental health problem at some point in their life.
Yeah,
so,
you
know,
can't just stop your career. That's one of the things with
but,
teaching is
yeah.
it's just very much an ongoing thing as well.
Yeah.
You could be having a bad day and you still need to rock up and
I suppose I really like what you said before, though, about this emotional literacy. So you mightn't even say to kids, I have depression, but you might just say, look, I've been quite disengaged. Like you might use other words, but talk about emotions. That's what I like.
Yeah, I think
what you said.
I think there's certainly room for that in the teaching profession. Some days, you know, I'll be absolutely exhausted. I might have 7 classes on in the day or 5 on, depending on school's timetable, and you've got a full day and you're literally moving from one place to the other. I think it's okay to sometimes say to the kids, all right, look, I'm having a really bad day today. I'm a bit grumpy. You've got some work to be going on with, and I think kids respect that too as well. They often respond well to that.
Yeah, well, it's that authenticity.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
and being relational. I like that. I really think that's the core of being a good teacher.
Absolutely, yeah. It's all about those relationships and